As parents, we steer our children to take a path that prepares them for adult life in society. The accepted familiar path is kindergarten, school, army in some countries, postgraduate education, and work. Parents of children with intellectual and developmental disabilities such as Oren, of whom I've spoken at the beginning of the chapter, also aspire that their children attain independent life as adults in society. Is this aspiration at all realistic? How does the life path of a developing child and of an adult with intellectual and developmental disability look like? Which treatment does the child receive? How do they advance in life? Will they be integrated in educational or labor settings? In this part of the course, we will go over the different stages that individuals with intellectual and developmental disability undergo from childhood to adulthood. Until the age of 3, each child is treated according to their level of functioning. Highly functioning infants are integrated in normal daycare centers within the frame of a national program termed From Risk to Chance. In contrast, infants that need habilitation are attending rehabilitation daycare settings. From the age of 3 to 21, children with mild to moderate intellectual and developmental disability without comorbid medical problems attend special education kindergartens and schools with their afternoons spent in special training centers. Children at these ages, whose functioning level requires constant management and therapy, or pupils with severe behavioral problems, attend special education schools, and at the end of the school day, they are integrated in a long day care center settings. These settings enable parents to keep their day jobs while treating their children at home. At the age of 21, the individual with intellectual and developmental disability who lives at home has 3 employment possibilities: supported employment, protected employment, and staying in a therapeutic center. Supported employment is intended for individuals with intellectual and developmental disability who are able to integrate in the open labor market using training programs and supervisors. Protected employment is intended for individuals with intellectual and developmental disability who are not able to integrate in the open labor market but can engage in protected employment at a rehabilitative labor framework. A therapeutic center addresses individuals at a low level of functioning that cannot integrate in a rehabilitative labor framework or in supported employment. Participants in these centers partake in treatment programs that enable promotion and quality of life, thereby relieving their families for a part of the day. In Israel, as part of a program called Equal and Uniform, individuals with intellectual and developmental disability are recruited to the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, and integrated in meaningful roles. This constitutes volunteer recruitment to the IDF. The program locates and trains candidates with intellectual and developmental disability as well as the units in which they would serve. The recruitment procedure starts with volunteering service for half a year and continues as normal service, whereby the entire service period is completed at the same unit where it was initially started as volunteer-based. Upon release, the young recruits are given the option of continuing their work for the IDF as army-employed civilians. Individuals with intellectual and developmental disability who do not live at home are referred to extra-domestic housing frameworks. These frameworks consist of 2 main types: community housing frameworks and residential settings. It is preferred to house the young individual with intellectual and developmental disability at a community framework. The existing community housing framework are apartments, group houses, and large community setting. An apartment is a housing framework intended for independent tenants, a maximum of 6, and is normally located within an ordinary residential building. A group house is a framework intended for maximum of 18 tenants, mostly presenting lower functioning level than tenants living in apartments. A large community is a housing framework intended for maximum of 24 tenants. There are individuals at a functioning level of moderate grade intellectual and developmental disability who cannot be integrated in a small apartment but may nonetheless enjoy, given appropriate support, a community housing framework. A residential institution is an extra-domestic housing framework intended for individuals with intellectual and developmental disability. Nowadays, some of the residential institutions open branches within the community.